Hi there and welcome to the Explaining History YouTube channel. And if you're watching this, then you're probably looking for information on Sergei Witte, Alexander III and Nicholas II's minister, who was finance minister and then chairman of the Council of Ministers under Nicholas II. Now, if you'd watched the previous video on Alexander III, I actually made an error on that, and I'm going to put my hands up to it and clean it up here. I said that Russia joined the gold standard under Alexander III. That's not the case. It happened under Nicholas II. It actually happened in 1897, and it was Witte that did it. So, mea culpa. You got to put your hands up to these things. Now, the reason why I want to talk about Witte today is that the students tend to know about him, but not in any great depth. And the more you know about him, the more interesting a character he is. And he represents kind of many missed opportunities for Russia. So he was the Russian director of railways from 1889 to 1891. And when he became Russian finance minister, he began to try to introduce many modern 19th century economic concepts that were fairly mainstream and well understood in Europe. He was a fan of the German economist Friedrich List, and he brought in List's arguments about essentially protection. That in order to foster domestic industry in Russia, in order to give Russian industrialization a chance, what you needed to do was build tariff barriers around Russia, so it made it more expensive for European goods and services to make it into Russia, and that would give Russian industry a chance, and it does. During the 1890s and then 1900s, there is the development of Russian industry, and after 1897, as I corrected myself, by introducing Russia to the gold standard, which was the fixed exchange rate mechanism across Europe and America, it meant that investment could reach Russia, foreign investments. So people, foreign capital spending its money in Russia, making Russia kind of a safe place to invest in. Now, as we know, Sergei Witte, having very Western ideas about economic development, is not existing in a very fertile environment for these ideas to grow. Sure, the Tsars want things like railways and battleships and prosperity for the country, but the social and economic dislocation and transformation that modern capitalism brings, they see as very unwelcome. The Russian Empire is already chaotic and unstable, and large parts of it are not necessarily fully under the control of anybody from time to time. And so the Tsars look at the transformations that capitalism has brought in Europe, and they see it having real consequences that undermine very traditional ideas of Russian life. Nicholas II retreated into various sort of slightly medieval fantasies about what Russia was about. And much of what Witte has to say to Nicholas II falls on deaf ears. Bobby Yetsenov, having educated Nicholas in a spirit of kind of conservatism and traditionalism and orthodoxy, left Nicholas believing really that those are the kinds of things that will always see Russia through. That's what Russia needs, really. And unfortunately, capitalism, the development of industry, and the financialization of Russia are kind of a two-edged sword. Sure that they bring about increased prosperity for some, but they also bring about dramatic transitions of people and communities and societies, huge increases in urbanization. They bring about the destruction of traditional livelihoods and handicrafts, and the development of mass production, all of which have the possibility to bring about revolutionary change in Russia, and certainly these are contributory factors. So there is this. Witte exists at the heart of these contradictions. Witte is a character that brings about, he encourages industrialization, and yet this industrialization is considered by by the Tsar and the Russian aristocracy somewhat unfavourable. There's an interesting little vignette in Orlando Fige's A People's Tragedy where he points out that when Marx was finally translated into Russian aristocrats read it and they saw it as a warning from this kind Mr. Marx, saying that once you get industrialization, you get a proletariat, it'll eventually overthrow you. And they thought, phew, well, we don't want any of that. That's nothing but trouble. Anyway, a little correction there for you, and I'm going to be continuing throughout the week to add more videos on 19th and 20th century Russia. Thanks, bye-bye.